Okay, so you know how you sent me that summary of The Anxious Generation
Right.
by Jonathan Haidt,
Right.
the one by Bruce Santucci?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really
I thought it was super interesting.
interesting.
Yeah, and so today I thought we could sort of do a deep dive into it and, just see what the core arguments are, what evidence they're using, and then maybe some thoughts on what it all means.
That's good.
So Santucci kicks things off by talking about what Haidt calls the great rewiring of childhood,
Yeah.
which
I thought that was such an interesting
it really grabs you.
phrase.
It does.
It's like, whoa, this is big.
Yeah, it makes you think, okay, this isn't just like, some minor tweak. This is like a fundamental shift.
Yeah. And it is a shift, too, because it seems like we've become super protective of kids in the real world,
Right.
like physically protective.
Yeah, less free range.
But then at the same time, we're kind of underprotecting them in the virtual world.
Yeah, it's like a double whammy.
It is, exactly.
And the big claim is that this shift from like a play-based childhood to what they call a phone-based childhood,
Yep.
which kind of happened, if you think about it around 2010,
Around then, yeah.
that's really connected to the rise in mental health issues that we're seeing with young people.
Right. And they're saying it's like a major factor, not just a
Yeah,
small thing.
yeah.
And that's why Santucci starts off his summary by talking about what he calls the surge of suffering.
Okay, so what exactly does this surge look like?
Well, he's talking about a huge increase in sadness, worry, and this is really scary instances of self-harm among young people.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And he's saying that all this seems to coincide with that 2010 timeframe.
Okay, so the timing really seems to line up.
That's what they're arguing, and he's using tangible data points to support it.
What kind of data points?
Well, things like hospital admissions related to mental health and,
Wow.
and suicide rates,
Oh, gosh.
really heavy stuff.
Yeah, so it sounds like they're trying to show that this isn't just, people kind of feeling like things are worse, but that there's actual evidence of a real increase in distress.
Right. It's not just anecdotal.
Okay, so then Santucci moves on to the decline of the play-based childhood. And I mean, I think anyone who's, been alive for the last couple of decades can kind of see this happening.
For sure. You just don't see kids roaming around the neighborhood like we used to.
Right, exactly. It's like, where are all the kids?
Yeah. And the book is saying that it's because parents are more worried about safety, which is understandable.
Of course.
But it means that kids aren't getting that unstructured playtime that we had.
And what's the impact of that?
Well, they're arguing that it really affects kids' emotional and cognitive development.
In what way?
Well, when you're out there playing on your own, you have to figure things out for yourself.
Right.
You have to navigate social situations.
Yeah.
You might even get into like little scrapes and bumps.
Yeah, I remember falling out of trees and stuff.
Exactly. And all of that helps you build resilience and problem-solving skills.
And social skills, too?
Totally. You have to learn how to interact with other kids without an adult always mediating.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the book is suggesting that kids today are missing out on all of that.
Okay, so then the flip side of that is the rise of the phone-based childhood. And, I mean, let's be honest, smartphones are everywhere now.
It's unbelievable how quickly they've taken over. And Santucci specifically mentions, apps like TikTok.
Yeah, those are designed to be super engaging.
Oh, yeah, totally addictive.
And what's interesting is how the book frames it. It's not just about the sheer amount of time spent on screens.
Right. It's about what those screens are replacing.
Yeah, like face-to-face interaction, physical activity,
Yeah.
Even just getting enough sleep.
All that suffers.
So basically, they're saying that this shift to a phone-based childhood is a huge part of why kids are struggling emotionally.
That's the argument.
Okay, so then Santucci breaks down the impact in a little more detail, looking at how this affects girls and boys specifically.
Right. And for girls, the big concern is social media.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we hear all the time about the pressure on girls to look a certain way.
And it's not just looks, it's their whole lifestyle.
Yeah, like they have to have the perfect vacation, the perfect friends,
Exactly. And it's all curated, it's all filtered. It's not real life.
But it's hard to remember that when you're constantly seeing it.
Especially for young girls who are already trying to figure out who they are.
So the book is saying that this constant comparison can lead to, anxiety, depression, feelings of inadequacy.
All of that.
And then for boys, the focus is a little different.
Right. It's more about video games and potential exposure to harmful content online.
Yeah, that's a whole other set of worries.
And it can lead to loneliness and disconnection.
How so?
Well, imagine a boy who spends all his time in the virtual world.
Okay.
He's not interacting with people face to face. He's not learning how to build relationships.
And he might be seeing stuff that's really messed up.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like he's retreating into this world that ultimately isolates him.
That's really sad.
It is, and it's something we need to be aware of.
Okay, so then there's a chapter on spiritual degradation, which sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it is a heavy topic, but basically what they're saying is that too much phone use can make you feel like your life has no meaning.
Whoa.
Like you're so disconnected from the real world, from nature, from human connection.
I guess that makes sense if you're spending all your time staring at a screen.
And you're not really interacting with your friends and family in a meaningful way.
Right, so you're just kind of floating through life without any real purpose.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And then, of course, there's the problem of, what do you do about it?
Right, that's what the chapter on collective action problems is all about.
Yeah, because it's one thing for an individual parent to say, okay, no more phone for you.
But if all the other kids are on their phones all the time...
Right, then your kid feels left out.
Exactly. So it's really hard to make a change on your own.
So what's the solution?
Well, the book argues that we need a more coordinated approach.
Like what kind of approach?
Like maybe delaying the age when kids get their first smartphones.
So like waiting until high school.
Yeah, something like that.
And what about keeping phones out of schools?
That's another suggestion.
So kids can actually focus on learning and interacting with each other.
Right.
And I guess the other big thing is encouraging more outdoor play.
Totally, just letting kids be kids.
Without hovering over them all the time.
Exactly, giving them that freedom to explore and take risks.
Okay, so that's what the book suggests, and then Santucci adds his own thoughts.
Right, and he basically agrees with Haidt's main argument.
So he thinks there's a real connection between smartphones and mental health.
Yeah, he says it's hard to dismiss the correlation.
And he also points out that some of the examples in the book really resonate with what he's hearing from people in his life.
Like teachers and parents.
Yeah, so it's like the book is reflecting what people are seeing on the ground.
Exactly, and he also agrees with the importance of free play for kids' development.
So he's on board with that too.
Definitely.
But he does raise some interesting questions.
Like what?
Well, he wonders if smartphones are the only thing at play here.
Oh, right, he mentions things like increased pressure in school.
And changes in family structures.
Yeah, so he's acknowledging that it's like a complex issue.
Right, it's not like smartphones are the only villain in this story.
Exactly.
And he also points out that some of the solutions might be hard to implement.
Yeah, like how do you actually delay smartphone access when everyone's so reliant on them?
Right, it's like a cultural shift that would be really difficult.
For sure.
But overall, it sounds like he agrees with the book's main message.
Yeah, that this phone-based childhood is a serious problem.
And that we need to find a better balance between screen time and real-world experiences.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for you, the listener, the key takeaway from all of this is that Haidt is arguing that this fundamental shift in childhood towards less real-world interaction and more screen time is strongly connected to the rise in mental health issues we've been seeing.
And it's not just a feeling, it's based on research and data.
Yeah, right. They're trying to show that there's real evidence to back this up.
And it's a combination of things. It's the overprotection in the real world and the underprotection in the virtual world.
Which is something to think about because it's like we're trying to keep our kids safe physically.
But we might be neglecting their emotional and mental well-being.
So that's the big takeaway, and I think it leads to some really important questions for all of us.
Like, what can we do about it?
Exactly what steps can we take to create a healthier balance for young people?
Because it's not just about limiting screen time.
Right. It's about fostering a childhood that really supports their well-being in this digital age.
And it's about thinking about all the different factors that might be contributing to these issues.
So it's a complex problem, but it's one that we need to be talking about.
Absolutely, because the stakes are really high.
Yeah, it's about the future of our kids.
Exactly.
Okay, well, I think that's a good place to leave it for today.
Yeah, food for thought for sure.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
And be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the sources we talked about.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.